Hi everyone, this is Heather. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to talk about the basics of getting started with your first video in Camtasia. To provide you a little bit of context, about a year ago, my boss asked me if I would be interested in learning how to create training videos. I had never created a video before, nor had I ever considered it. But when your boss asks, the answer should be, I'll give it a try. And so I did. I did a bunch of research on the different types of software that were 1, authorized by my organization, or 2, available for free. Ultimately, I decided on Camtasia because even though it wasn't a free software, it was the easiest one for me to understand as a person with no background in videography. In the past year, some of my colleagues have asked me, how do I create these videos, what software am I using, etc. So in this video, I'm going to answer their questions. So let's jump on the computer and take a look at how it's done.
For those of you who may not already have Camtasia downloaded on your computer, you can get a free 30-day trial by going to www.techsmith.com/download/Camtasia. I will include a link in the description of this video. I used the 30-day free trial in order to learn whether or not this software was for me. The one thing I will point out is that any videos you produce during that 30-day free trial will have a Camtasia watermark on it. If you decide to purchase Camtasia, the watermark will be removed from those videos. I have opened the Camtasia Getting Started window, and you will see that you have the option to start from a new project, a template, a new recording, or open a project. You can also select any of your recent projects. I'm going to go ahead and select the project file associated with this video. And here we are in the Camtasia user interface. The first thing that I like to do is go into the File menu in the upper left-hand corner and select Save As so that I don't risk losing any of my work. The next thing I suggest is going to your Edit menu, select Preferences, and make sure that Enable Autosave is turned on. Mine is set to autosave every 1 minute, but you can change that time frame if you like. When you're happy with it, click OK. On the left-hand side of the screen is the navigation bar, where you will find a lot of the tools that you will use to edit your video. The first one is the media bin. In this example, there are already some assets in the media bin because I wanted to make sure that you had some samples to look at. You can organize your media bin in different ways. I have mine organized by type. So you can see that the screen recordings are in the first section. This is the video from my camera, which I imported the MP4 file. And here are some audio files for some voice narrations that I have already done. When you have your own screen recordings or video files, you can drag and drop them from the media bin down to the timeline below. And then you will be able to see the content on the canvas in the center. The next item in the navigation menu is the library. Camtasia comes with several standard assets, such as icons, lower thirds, and outros. The ones that are included in this section are part of the Camtasia license. However, they do have a paid asset library if you would like additional choices. You can also create your own library. This is useful to keep track of assets that you might reuse across multiple videos. For example, in my YouTube library, I have a few songs, an outro, and a couple intros. Now I don't have to go looking for them each time I want to use them. I'm not going to go over every single menu item in the navigation bar. I'm going to cover some of the ones that I use on a regular basis. For example, I frequently use annotations in my video to create call-out bubbles and text boxes. If you find something that you think you will use on a regular basis, you can make it a favorite by hovering over it and clicking the star. This will put it in your favorites menu so that you can quickly access the editing tools that you use on a regular basis. Another menu item I use frequently is animations. This allows me to use the zoom and pan effect. Zoom and pan allows me to focus on a specific part of the screen to make it a little bit larger, like I'm doing right now for this navigation menu. You can also click on the Animations tab and add different types of effects. A question that I get frequently is, how do you get the green bouncing ball or highlighter over your cursor? This is a cursor effect in Camtasia. The standard one is a yellow highlight. I, however, prefer my cursor to be highlighted in green, so I created a user-generated cursor effect and then saved it as a preset. The next navigation item that I use frequently is the voice narration. My preferred recording style is to speak into my microphone as I'm recording the video, but I will frequently make mistakes in what I want to say. So when I go to edit the video, I will cut out the mistakes and re-record them as a voice narration. For the rest of the video, I'm going to walk you through the basics of starting a screen recording and editing it. The first thing you will do is click the record button at the top of the screen. The screen recording toolbar automatically hides itself when you are recording in Camtasia. Therefore, I had to get the following footage from a different software program, which isn't as good as Camtasia. I apologize for the difference in quality. The first thing you need to do is select the screen you want to record. I have two monitors, so I can choose Screen 1 or Screen 2. And you can also choose a custom region. I prefer to record the whole screen. Next, if you have a webcam, you can turn the webcam on or off. Then you have the ability to select your microphone. I have two microphones, so for me it is important to make sure before I start any project that I have the correct microphone selected. Finally, you can choose whether or not to include system audio in your recording. I generally turn this off, mostly because I tend to film during the workday and the system audio will capture my Teams notifications and my Outlook notifications, and I don't necessarily want that in my videos. And then you have some tools at the top of the recording toolbar. Click on Tools and Options. And by default, all of these are selected. I personally choose to deselect Show Recorder Countdown. There's no right or wrong answer. This is just a preference for me. Now let's click on the Files tab to look at some additional settings. You can choose to let Camtasia automatically pick a file name for you, or you can switch the radio button and require a prompt for a file name. Also on the Files tab, you can see the default output folder and the temporary storage folder. When you are done selecting your preferences, click the Record button to start your screen recording, or you can use the hotkey F9. Now that you know how to record your screen, I'm going to show you how to take that footage and do some basic editing. For the purposes of this demonstration, I am going to take the screen recording from the beginning of this video where I showed you how to get a free 30-day trial from Camtasia and show you how to edit that. First, I'm going to grab it from the media bin and drag and drop it to the timeline below. Because I record audio and video at the same time, they are on the same track. However, during the editing process, I typically edit them separately. To separate the audio and video, right-click the mouse over track 1 and select Separate Audio and Video. Let's take a look at some of the tools that you can use while you're editing on your timeline. First, you have the playhead, which you can drag across the timeline to preview what's going to be on the screen. You have the ability to cut, copy, and paste certain sections of the video. So for example, if I take the red tab next to the playhead and drag it to about 9 minutes and 3 seconds, you will see this light blue square that lets me know only this section is selected, and then I can cut this section out of the video by clicking the scissors or Control X. If I realize I don't want to make that cut, I can click the Undo button or Control Z. Another useful tool is the ability to zoom in and out of the timeline by clicking the plus or minus sign. You can also select the slider bar to adjust the timeline. I personally prefer to have mine at about halfway. It helps me to isolate specific frames or specific pieces of audio and make corrections. Another important thing to know is that each piece of media should be on its own track. So for example, I have video on track 1 and audio on track 2. If I wanted to add a call-out bubble, I could go to Annotations, and that would be added onto track 3. And you can adjust the duration of the call-out bubble so that it shows for as long as you need it to on the screen. Now that I have the call-out bubble on the timeline, I can move it around, make it larger, and then I can double click in it and type in my text. And if you remember from the beginning of the video, I had typed in a URL. If you add more effects to the footage, each one will have its own track. Now that you're familiar with some of the tools, let's take a look at editing the actual footage. In this particular example, between 8 minutes and approximately 52 seconds and 8 minutes 57 seconds, I actually stuttered a little bit and said the same thing twice. So I want to remove this first statement. Now, if I were to click delete right now, it would remove everything from all of the tracks. In order to edit just track 2, I can go over to the left-hand side of the screen and notice that there's a little lock icon next to each of the tracks. I will click the lock for track 3 and track 1, and then you will see that there's a gray line with sideways lines to indicate that these tracks are locked for editing. And now I can delete the content on track 2 without impacting the content on track 1 or 3. That's much better. Instead of saying you can get a free 30-day trial twice, it's only in there once. When I'm ready to continue editing the other tracks, I can click the lock to make them available for editing. In the next section that I'm going to highlight, I noticed that I stuttered quite a bit, and I do not need that section whatsoever. So I'm going to grab the Selection tab, and what I typically do is I play through the selected content to make sure that I didn't grab anything that I actually needed before I delete it. Now that I have verified that this is the content I want to remove, I am going to use an alternate method of deleting it. Instead of clicking delete on my keyboard, which will create a hole in my content, I am going to use ripple delete, which will move everything to the left. To do this, I am going to use the keyboard shortcut Control Backspace. And I can continue scrubbing through my footage until I'm happy with it. The next editing technique I would like to share is how to silence a piece of the audio instead of deleting it. I'm zooming the timeline out so that it's easier for me to see particular anomalies in the waveform for the audio. And right here, it looks like I took a really deep breath. I played through it, and yes, I can hear that there is a breath there. I don't necessarily want to delete that section of the video, I just don't want to hear it. If I right-click over the selected area, I can select Silence Audio or Shift S. And now if we play it again, you will not hear the deep breath. And the last thing I'm going to show you for my basic editing techniques is how to use the zoom and pan effect. For example, let's say I want to highlight the part of the screen that shows Windows download and Mac download. Maybe this is going to be a little bit too small on the viewer's screen. I'm going to navigate to Animations in the navigation menu. And the first tab is Zoom and Pan. I can grab the handles around the video and I can resize the screen and move it around. And now I think this section of the screen is going to display quite nicely for people, even if they're viewing this video on a phone or a tablet. Notice that when I selected the zoom and pan function, down here at the bottom we have an arrow. This is indicating where the zoom will happen and how long it will take to happen. So let's take a look at that. If I drag the playhead to the beginning of the arrow and click play, Notice that the time it takes for the playhead to go over the arrow is how long it takes for the zoom effect to happen. Our basic edits are complete. Now it's time to export the video. Navigate to the top of the screen and click the Export menu item. Camtasia does have multiple options, but I always use local file, and this is because most of my videos are being uploaded to a company intranet. I'm going to select local file. A production wizard appears, and it lets me know that the editing dimensions are 1920 by 1080. These are the preferred settings for the organization that I work for. I will click Next, and I always choose MP4 with Smart Player. Click Next again, and then you have a few menu items you can choose from. You can change the size of the video, change some of the video settings or audio settings, and there are a couple additional options. For your basic video, you shouldn't need to change any of these options. I will click Next again. On this screen, I do not need to make any choices because my videos do not include a watermark, nor do I need to use SCORM, which is used for e-learning tools. So I'll click Next again. On this last screen, I am going to decide where my file needs to be saved. This is typically the one thing that I will change because the export defaults to the last folder I saved to. And then from there, I will click Finish. To close out this video, I would like to show you where you can find some additional resources. This has just covered the very basics of my editing techniques, but Camtasia is capable of doing so much more. If you go to the TechSmith homepage and click on Resources, and then click on TechSmith Academy, you can scroll through quite a few resources, and several of them are free. TechSmith has their own YouTube channel, and there are also other content creators who cover Camtasia. As time allows, and if there's interest from the audience, I plan on doing additional videos focusing on smaller pieces of the editing process. I hope you found this Getting Started in Camtasia video useful, and I will see you in the next video.